years. So let's welcome Anthony Mallott again.
Thank you very much, John, and one of the only individuals that I would let move forward with that video. It is a good video, though. I did have that reaction when I heard it was going to be played beforehand. Who told you to do this? No, it's good. It sets the stage a bit. The music's great. You know. The presentation and why I was asked to talk with you today was because of some very exciting news that Sealaska got recently. Most wonderful Christmas present we could ever ask for, which is our land legislation. It passed Congress and was signed into law this past December. And you know, it's exciting for us. It's daunting, but you know, we're jumping into the process. And as I walk you through the presentation we have here, hopefully you get a sense of the thinking we're taking on with the continued respect we always have for our land and the continued want to make Southeast a more sustainable economic region. Before I do that, I would like to introduce myself. Anthony Mallott, Ganak Yuchet Duasak, Chak Nachat Sati, Tsagwadi Ayachet, Kwashkakwan Yeti Ayachet, Koyakan Athabaskan Dutch Khan Ayachet. I'm a Tsagwadi killer whale clan. I'm a child of the Kwashkakwan from Yakutat, Alaska, and a grandchild of the Koyakan Athabaskan. My mother's from Rampart on the Yukon River. When thinking about the history of the lands bill, yeah, I could, yeah, there are people that could stand up here and talk for hours on the 10-year process that we went through, the 200 meetings we held with stakeholders to address so many concerns. I mean, every acre of the Tongass is valuable, and we appreciate that, and we know that and understand that, we believe, more than anybody else out there. So the process we went through, maybe it was necessary to go through that 10-year process to get to where we are, but it was long and it was arduous. You know, I'd love to be able to take more credit for it passing on my watch. I know that wouldn't be right. The dedication of current and past employees, current and past board members, the dedication of our congressional delegation, industry, you know, friendly folks throughout Southeast Alaska that supported this bill. We thank and appreciate every letter of support we got, every call to our congressional delegation from industry that occurred. You know, we couldn't have gotten such a tough piece of legislation done without all of that support, and we do appreciate it. You know, going back to what I can take credit for, I can take credit that I didn't screw it up. One of the first things I did, you know, the very first trip I took as CEO was going back to D.C. to meet with the congressional delegation. And I wanted to make the assessment. What can we do? What can we do to get this bill passed that's so important to us, so meaningful to us, will save jobs in the region, will be meaningful to our shareholder base? And I asked Don Young, I asked Senator Murkowski, Senator Begich, what more can we do? And they emphatically said, don't do anything. The hard work has been done. This is as close to a non-controversial bill as this bill will ever get to. So we stood back and we let them do their work, and you know, appreciated again the hard work it took for them, and the hard work to get to that effectively non-controversial status, again as close as this bill could, through the hard work and all the community outreach that we did. You know, I will be walking through what it means for Sealaska, what it means for the region. I'd like to discuss some of the conversations the board has had with management, with our operators around the long-term planning for these new lands, and as well some of the guiding values and guiding principles that we've always worked under when thinking about land management at Sealaska. And as well, you know, Sealaska just isn't a natural resources company. Our greatest asset is our land. but we have other areas of focus that could be meaningful to the Southeast economy, and I'd like to quickly cover that as well. Looking at a summary of the Sea-Alaska land legislation, 70,000 acres. It's our final conveyance. We are now a owner of 365,000 total acres in the Tongass. I'm sure a few of you were here yesterday when Merrill Sanford talked to us. And he even used a figure. He said 97% of the Tongass is managed by the federal government. I don't know if it's that high, but it's pretty darn close. And you see, we say 2%. We actually own less than 2% of our original homelands in Southeast Alaska. I mentioned this, and I mentioned Merrill Sanford because he took 2 minutes at the end of his presentation. I'll take 2 minutes now. Through this process, we faced opposition, reasonable opposition and not so reasonable opposition. And I think we're going to continue to face opposition. And I would just ask for all the people to ask for honest conversation around issues in the Tongass. We all live here. We all love this place. There is no one that wants protection of the Tongass more than our people. So when you see a headline, "Save the Tongass from logging," or you see a headline, "See Alaska clear-cutting the Tongass," it's borderline dishonest when you look at the fact that we own less than 2% of it. It's sensationalism, it's headlines that draw in readers, but it's not the honest conversation that we want to have. We want to connect and collaborate with groups within Southeast Alaska. We've reached out. The Nature Conservancy may have reached out to us, a wonderful partner. Imagine all the people out there that would rather put headlines out like that and spend their time with legal action if they instead, like the Nature Conservancy, said, "Hey, I'm going to spend my dollars and I'm going to help the Southeast economy create sustainable jobs." Those are the conversations we want to have, and we want everybody to rail back against those sensationalist headlines and effectively some dishonest tactics that I don't believe we need to be part of the conversation. So we'll deal with any issue up front and with honesty, but we need a greater support. I think of Merrill Sanford or Don Young. Those are the people that you expect to rail against the environmentalist. I'm not railing against the environmentalist. I want open conversation so we work together, and that's where I'm going with that. And we need more moderate views, and I'd like to think that starting the conversation with people that want to make a difference in Southeast is the right place to start. So maybe it was over 2 minutes, but there's my 2 minutes. So really quickly, the day the lands bill passed, the board was discussing shutting down Sea-Alaska Timber. That's how close this handoff was. So the majority of the acreage, 68,000 acres, are timberlands. But there is some small portions, small economic development sites. We actually wanted much more of those. We felt that if we had greater opportunity, we could look at land management in much broader view than just timber harvesting. Unfortunately, the majority of those fell out, but we do have a few. And as well, the cultural and historic sites, very important to us, very important to the board to manage some of the historic cultural sites of our people. In both of these instances, the economic development sites and the cultural sites, we've promised we seek local input on any use, any management we plan on these two parcels. That's very important to us. If there's an economic development site in Yakutat, if there's a cultural site in Sitka, we want to work with the local organizations to help manage those sites. It doesn't make sense for us to go in and put our management oversight over areas that are very important to some of the local communities. So we're reaching out and creating, hopefully, many more MOUs with tribes and relationships with city and other local municipalities. I mentioned kind of the core values that we've always managed our lands under. Sealaska was given these core native values from Sealaska Heritage Institute and their Council of Traditional Scholars as the most 4 core native values that they would like to see Sealaska operate under. And we call it values in action. It's our values in action framework. You know, ha'ani by itself, our land. Land is not a value by itself, but respect for the land is, use of the land, protection of the land. Those are the values we live by. Hashuka, our past, present, and future. Traditionally, Hashuka describes a spiritual connection that people living today have with their ancestors that they're going to carry forward into the future. That right now is the most meaningful value we're working under. And what does it mean for a timber operator? What does it mean for our natural resource department when they're thinking about long-term planning? It means we have a 40-year operating history in the timber industry. We want to look and learn from that operating history. What skills did we build? What strengths do we have? What challenges did we face? What opportunities did we miss? And we want to take that recognition of the past, those lessons learned, and create some long-term planning that, again, assures that the lands that we got in this bill offer benefit to shareholders in the Southeast region far into the future. Ha'chatsin, our strength and leadership. Again, you know, strength and leadership, there is some pride to this. We use it often. But there's also a sense of discipline to train and maintain your strength. And that's one that we keep core at Sealaska. You have to have that discipline. You have to look for continual education. You can't be comfortable where you are, and you have to, again, continually train. Wuchiach, balance, reciprocity, and respect. Now this one is very nuanced, and it can be translated in many different ways, but I think the most meaningful translation for this audience is that we want to collaborate. We want to find partners. We want to create partnerships that can be meaningful to both parties. And within those relationships, we want to have balance and respect. And I think we attempt to do that on a daily basis at Sealaska, and I believe we've worked hard to create that balance and respect with our partners. So that's the framework we've operated under for many years. What's new with the lands bill is the board and management held another session on some guiding principles that they would like for us to carry forward, again, in both our short-term and our long-term planning for the new lands. You know, the first one, operational alignment with values and action. That's just what I went over. You know, keep those core values, keep operating, maintain the land stewardship standards that you're operating under, improve them. You know, improve the science, improve the harvesting techniques, but those core values, you're not going to leave those just because we have these new lands. Maximize value creation, a very funny corporate speak. You know, this is corporate language that may be meaningless to many here, but value creation is very important to Sealaska. Value creation means every day of work, every investment dollar we spend, we're looking to create value from our efforts, from our investment capital. And value, it's not always just financial value. It's, does a day of work create cultural benefit to our shareholders? Does it protect the environment? Does it add value in terms of increasing the capacity of our youth? You know, all of those issues can create value, but you have to have that value creation mentality to make sure that we're putting our best effort forward. And in terms of the new lands, that just means it's providing us a fresh start. We're going to look at the entire value chain of our timber harvest, and I have a couple slides that'll go into further detail. You know, increase the benefits from our unique land asset. This is one we have been working on. We'd like to increase our efforts here. You know, we've been reviewing carbon sequestration opportunities for years. We'd like to broaden our thoughts around what can we create from, again, this unique land asset. And I know many of you that are from Southeast, we'd look to you for ideas as well and partnerships in thinking about these opportunities. And we've been approached from people we've met at this conference about the opportunities they see. Wetland mitigation is one in particular, but we're pretty proud about some of the local harvest opportunities we'd like to create, and I'll go over some of that. Going back to the next few slides, go over these. The first few, operational alignment with values and action, and kind of proving to ourselves the fact that we want to be good long-term stewards of our land. What does that mean? What do we have to do to make sure everybody understands we're strong stewards of our land? Silviculture is a process of practice where you use treatments to improve the quality and health of your forest. That's simply stated. It's not just the quality and health of the tree, it's the forest. So if you think of basal pruning, one of the practices we use, actually we're cutting the lower limbs of a tree. It improves sunlight to the forest floor and actually increases forest floor vegetation for better wildlife habitat. It's not just about, it's about the total health of the forest, and we pride ourselves in the silviculture that we've put forward, and we've actually had a relationship with Oregon State University for many years now, studying what are some of the best practices within the silviculture industry. And to highlight here, this is a significant economic engine. We spend over $1 million a year in our silviculture, and that's all local dollars spent with contractors in the woods, working on our forests. So this is a significant economic engine that we're proud of. Stream protection, this one's really easy for us. Everybody understands the value of the fisheries industry in Southeast Alaska. The cultural value of salmon to the Tlingit and Haida and Tsimshian is invaluable. So, this is one where if we didn't feel we had good science behind the fact that our timber harvesting protects salmon streams or doesn't damage salmon streams, we'd be doing a lot more work on here. And we are continuing our work around making sure that our harvest doesn't negatively affect salmon streams. Science, that goes along with the salmon stream studies, but it's broader than just salmon stream studies. We'll look at harvesting techniques, the science behind harvesting techniques. We'll look at, broader wildlife management in terms of the way we want to utilize science within our operations. But as well, science is an area where there is great opportunity for collaboration. We love the partners that we're able to work with when we bring them on to look at some of the scientific effects of our harvest. We've worked very closely with the Forest Service, universities, and it's a collaborative approach. We want to share the science with other landowners in Southeast Alaska, and we want to make sure that we're all working under some of the best practices when it comes to timber harvest. If you think of the industry, it's necessary. It's absolutely necessary that we collaborate with other landowners. We're not going back to the history where there were, 400 million board feet of timber cut in a year. I don't think we'll approach an average of even half of what we used to cut. So the cut is going to be much smaller. There's going to be less players. We have to really make sure that we're working cohesively as landowners to have, the least environmental effect, and as well create economies that are sustainable within Southeast. And you have to work on that together because the pie is too small in Southeast now. It's still meaningful. It's just smaller. Reassess the value chain. This is the fresh start that we want to look at our operations. Again, what are the skills we built? What are our strengths? What opportunities did we miss? One is greater workforce training. You look at 40 years of operations. We've had great shareholder hire within our timber harvesting opportunities. We just haven't created as many training opportunities or career paths. And I think going forward, when looking at harvesting well into the future, we want to make sure that we create known career paths for our shareholders that timber harvesting can be a sustainable industry in Southeast, and you can plan a living based on working within this industry. Assess vertical integration opportunities. That's just, going back to understanding what does it take? Who are the tug and barge operators, stevedoring opportunities? Who are the loggers in the forest? And there are some holes in the infrastructure. There's some old infrastructure out there that may need investment, even in the small mills in the region. So, we'd be looking at all of this differently from how we've looked at our harvesting opportunities over the last 40 years. So, again, we're excited to take this fresh look at all the opportunities we may have with these additional lands and creating broader understanding of the markets. We have been selling logs overseas to Asia for the majority of our history. That is by far the most economic market for us. We need to assess the long-term viability of that market and understand all other markets for our unique product. The other promise, the guiding principles that we're moving forward with, again, is that multiple land use. Look at carbon sequestration, look at other environmental credits, wetland mitigation, look at local harvesting opportunities. Last year we got our lands organically certified for blueberry harvest. We want to create markets for locally harvested natural foods, natural plant products. And this whole entire page is an area that is not the natural resources team. It's not the timber team. It's the entirety of Sealaska is looking at ways we can create greater use from our land. It's Ha-ni. Ha-ni will have a significant effort to play in this priority. Tourism as well. We know, everybody knows the big ships that come into Juneau. We'd like to broaden tourism opportunities within our smaller rural communities. Hunatotem's done it great. There's much more opportunity in some of our communities for tourism. We'd like to help catalyze some of those opportunities. And then mineral exploration. We own 365,000 acres of surface. We own over 600,000 acres of subsurface estate. The issue with mineral exploration, we're spending money now. We may not see a financial return for 15 to 20 years. That's the lead time on mineral projects. But what comes within that time frame is economic opportunity for the region. Just having explorers mapping, being out in the woods, you need staff, you need local people working with the explorers to review the opportunities. And then once you get closer, you need service opportunities. You need, you need housing, you need any number of services. So, the person we have addressing mineral exploration for us is also addressing all the economic opportunities that would come with mining. And again, he says there are no pebble mines in Southeast Alaska. We know we are working closely with Click and Haida Central Council on some of their transboundary issues. We understand the environmental degradation that can occur with mining. And again, any mineral exploration falls under those values approach that we have. Last few slides. I guess we switched it up here. I'll just go ahead and load them up. Ha-ni LLC, I hope people from this conference are aware and educated on the efforts of Ha-ni and what Ha-ni is in terms of Sealaska. That was, Sealaska's corporate. Everybody likes to call us corporate. We don't like the title. But Ha-ni, we understand that corporate mentality can be different than economic development mentality, and it takes different skill sets. So we wanted to make sure we had a part of Sealaska that was solely focused on economic development, and that's what Ha-ni is. And they will continue their efforts within Southeast Alaska. The Ha-ni Community Development Fund, that's another area of us broadening our economic development reach. When Ha-ni started, they're still a young organization. When they were out meeting partners and meeting local entrepreneurs, it wasn't always obvious that these entrepreneurs or those looking for economic opportunity wanted the equity investment from Ha-ni, oftentimes they wanted loan capital instead, and that's what the CDFI is meant to, fill the gap. We want to be able to provide investment capital for those that want it and loan capital for those that want it as well. And as well, Ha'ani is a great collaborative vehicle. We've come across partners that love what we're trying to do with Ha'ani. They share this mission of Ha'ani of increasing sustainable economic progress within Southeast Alaska. A lot of these vehicles, they may be private foundations, they may be entities like the Nature Conservancy. They just can't partner up with for-profit entities as easily as they can partner up with nonprofit entities. So the CDFI is a nonprofit. Sea Alaska funded it. It's an affiliate of Sea Alaska, but has a totally separate governance structure. And Sea Alaska funded it with $500,000, and they've been successful in finding partners that want to increase investment capital within Southeast, the Nature Conservancy being one of the ones we're most proud of with the recent announcement that we have. And the partnership we have with them through the Path to Prosperity is through the CDFI as well. Natural resources, we just went over all of that. That's minerals, that's timber, that's land stewardship, that's silviculture, that's rock and gravel. We have aggregate sales throughout Southeast. That's the science we utilize, the partnerships we have with the Forest Service. We also look at a new acquisition process on the corporate side as having the ability to bring in new economic development within Southeast. Our acquisition process, Sea Alaska has significant investment capital to create a new operating platform. We'd like that operating platform to be meaningful to our shareholders, and to be meaningful to our shareholders, most likely it'll have a significant connection into Southeast Alaska. We've reviewed environmental services, we've reviewed marine industries, we've reviewed the fisheries, seafood industry, natural food industry. All of these, we believe, when we make that investment, can create economic development within Southeast Alaska, and that's one of the filters we're utilizing with the board, that the dollars we spend through Sea Alaska Corporate's large acquisition should have a connection to Southeast Alaska. Of course, we have, and I believe right before the lunch session, we had kind of an arts session, and Sea Alaska Heritage Institute is one area we're very proud of. Sea Alaska maintains significant donations to SHI on an annual basis, not only the celebration, but everything they do for education and cultural preservation and cultural strength. We appreciate that partnership, and we know that they can provide good economic benefit to Southeast Alaska. And lastly, just the fact that we have a large headquarters here in Juneau and can stay connected with policymakers and continue to find partners with those organizations or individuals that share values with us. And lastly, some of the ways we plan on making sure we create strong effect. I mentioned it over and over: partnerships. Everybody here, if you're thinking about innovation and entrepreneurship, feasibility is a word that you get asked about constantly. In Southeast Alaska, we've seen for many projects, there's a feasibility gap, I call it. It's a project that just is so close to working, but there's still that gap that just you can't prove that it's feasible. And we think partnering with broader sets of organizations will help close that feasibility gap. So we're really focused on finding good partners. Increasing investment capital within Southeast. That's the CDFI. That's the strength of the CDFI getting $1 million USDA grant to provide greater investment capital into Southeast Alaska. And the CDFI and Ha'ani are continually searching for additional opportunities to increase investment capital in Southeast. Good research and analysis. This is one. You can't chase every project. You have to have a set of filters you abide by, and you go after the best ones, and you make sure that you have good analysis behind that, so you're not wasting effort or dollars that are so few and far between in Southeast. And finally, one that we're really searching out is define the goals you want with economic development. If it was purely financial, I don't know if Ha'ani would exist within Sea Alaska. It's the goals we have for Ha'ani's effect on Southeast are not purely financial. But we do have to continue to measure it. What are the effects we want Ha'ani to have? Is it jobs? Is it the job-by-job approach that they're moving forward with? Is it payroll? Is it population stability? Is it population increase? You know, what are they looking for? And then once we decide what those positive measures are, start measuring them, and we're going to start spreading the impact of Ha'ani's efforts within Southeast to make sure that, you know, our board knows it's worthwhile, our shareholders know it's worthwhile, and we feel comfortable that we're putting good effort forward in creating a sustainable economy for Southeast Alaska. And again, we'd look for all ideas and partnerships that you may have here. We have a great Ha'ani team that'll be around and has been around during the conference, and thank you for inviting me to be here with you today.